The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. It doesn't take much money to support local news.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. 175 people lost their lives as a result of their jobs last year in British Columbia. This Sunday marks the National Day of Mourning for workers killed, injured, or made ill by their work. Flags at government buildings will be at half-mast to mark the occasion. For more on what will be happening locally, I spoke with Jen McPherson, president of the Nanaimo, Duncan and District Labour Council. What's taking place in Nanaimo to mark the day of mourning for workers killed and injured on the job?
So on Sunday, April 28th, the Labour Council is having 3 different ceremonies, and our ceremony in Nanaimo is happening downtown at Pioneer Waterfront Plaza, right beside the Bastion at 12:30.
And can you give me a sense of what's going to happen, what's going to take place during that ceremony?
So we're going to stop and we're going to take mark and recognize, the workers who have been injured or killed on the job. We're going to hear from, we have speakers coming from WorkSafe BC, as well as other elected folks within the region. And also we will hear from anyone who wants to get up and share about their experiences dealing with workplace injuries and health and safety as well.
Can you give me a sense of maybe how many people have been impacted locally by either workplace injuries or fatalities?
Well, there's so many people that have been impacted by this. I mean, you could reach out to any family or friends and into different social circles that you have throughout the community, and everyone will know someone who has had some sort of injury or may have known someone who has lost their life on the job.
This is a national day of mourning. Are there any parts of it that stand out as particularly important or maybe unique to our region on the Mid-Island as compared to maybe other places in the country?
I don't think that there's anything specifically unique about the way that we mark the day, but I think that we have such a unique history when it comes to, workplace injuries and health and safety in our region, considering, Nanaimo was built on the bones of workers, looking at the mining history that we have here in Nanaimo.
What stands out to you as maybe we take this day to mourn and reflect? Is it particularly important to keep in mind and to think about our workplaces day to day?
I think today, April 28th, will be the day where we need to recommit ourselves to the importance of making our workplaces as safe as possible. Last year, 175 workers in BC lost their lives. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many workplace injuries and deaths that aren't considered as a part of that statistic. Every 15 seconds across the world, one worker loses their life.
When it comes to maybe renewing a commitment to health and safety in the workplace, what does that mean on the level of an individual worker? What does someone need to think about or do?
Take a second and look around your work site and ask yourself that question. Should we be doing this work? Is this the safest way that we could be doing it? Do we have the right equipment available to us? Is this the proper procedure that we should be doing? And every regulation that has been put into place that makes workplaces safer has been put into place because of an injury that's taken place. Most health and safety regulations are reactive. They're not proactive.
So on that front, if someone is in their workplace and they're looking around, or maybe they're asking, is this safe, with an eye towards deep down they think maybe not, what do they do?
So each worker has the right and actually the responsibility to refuse unsafe work, and every worker, whether they're unionized or not, is covered under the Occupational Health and Safety Regulation 3.12, where we all have the right and responsibility to refuse unsafe work. And Regulation 3.13 says that we have the right to no discrimination. We cannot be fired or disciplined for refusing unsafe work. And it's a right that more workers need to exercise in our workplaces to keep them as safe as possible.
What does refusing unsafe work look like? How do I do that?
So let's say you've been asked to do a task and you take a look at, the situation. And I mean, this could be, it could be anything. And I mean, you take a look at it, you feel unsafe by doing that task. You would go to your supervisor and go, I feel unsafe doing this work. I have the right to refuse unsafe work, and I'm refusing to do this task because I feel unsafe doing so. And then after that, they have the responsibility to, look into the task and figure out, well, maybe is there a piece of equipment that's missing? Is there, some training that isn't, there that should be there? Or is this something that is, really truly, dangerous and shouldn't be done at all? And so they have to take a look at that. And if you feel it's still unsafe after maybe you're given, a pair of eye goggles, for example, to, do the task, and you still feel it's unsafe, they have to take a look at that even further and potentially call WorkSafe in to take a look at the task at hand to investigate into it to see whether that policy needs to be changed or whether the task should be done by that person or what needs to be changed.
You mentioned that last year in BC, 175 people lost their lives as a result of their work. Are there any things in particular that stand out to you as areas that we could do something differently to make that number lower and ideally zero in the future?
The goal is always zero, and I think that we're unfortunately a long ways away from that. A lot of those deaths were because of occupational disease. 93 of the deaths last year were results of occupational disease, and 48 of those were results to asbestos exposures. But the injuries and deaths around construction sites have actually been increasing, and the amount of people that lost their lives last year was actually the highest number that we've seen in British Columbia in the last 35 years, and that's definitely a cause for concern.
Is there any specific action you feel we could be taking or you would call for on that front?
Every worker needs to stop and take a look at the task before they, do the work, and they need to, whether that's the way the task has been done for years and we just carry on with it, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way we should be doing it going forward.
So the ceremony is on April 28th. Beyond actually going there and showing up, what would you like people to know or to keep in mind, think about as we mark this occasion?
I think we need to, take note about the fact that everybody needs to work. Everybody needs to, earn a living. And so this is something that absolutely affects everybody. And, most people hopefully will be able to go through their working careers without, sustaining a injury, whether it be, simple or a small injury or something, more serious. And I think that we need to have everyone look out for our coworkers, look out for our friends, look out for our family, look out for each other, especially when we're at work, and recognize some of these things that can be considered dangerous, because this could be a task that, one person's been doing for years and they don't see the harm in it. And you have someone new coming in, recognizing that this, feels a little risky or, looks a little like a recipe for disaster, and, takes the initiative to say, wait, like, we need to look at this. We need to stop. Is your life worth, completing this task? And if we all stop and do that, we will, lower these rates of workplace injuries and illnesses and deaths to the point where the Day of Mourning will not be a national mourning day where we stop and recognize workers who have lost their lives. I anxiously await the day where we can stop and we can have a celebration that we did not lose a single person in the previous year.
Is there anything else you think it's important to bring to the conversation on this National Day of Mourning?
I think recognizing that, a lot of things have been put into place, especially around asbestos, which is definitely lowering a lot of occupational disease that is happening and the exposures that were happening previously. However, a lot of those exposures happened in decades previous it's those exposures have happened, and so we're seeing those numbers will slowly start going down over time. But I think it's making sure that we just kind of stop and take a look around and remember that I don't care if you've worked at your job for 20 years or 20 minutes, everyone has a voice and everyone has the ability to stop and say, wait a second, is this safe? Is this something we should be doing? And I think having more people being aware that this is a national holiday, as most people don't normally, not everyone knows that the National Day of Mourning is a national holiday just because it's not a statutory holiday.
Jen McPherson, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me on this.
Thank you very much, and I hopefully will see you on Sunday.
Thanks. Jen McPherson is president of the Nanaimo, Duncan and District Labour Council. A ceremony to mark the National Day of Mourning for workers killed, injured, or made ill by their work will take place Sunday at 12:30 in Pioneer Waterfront Park by the Bastion in Nanaimo. The city's early years were especially marked by work-related tragedies. Next week sees the anniversary of the largest mining disaster in the province's history. Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krogh spoke about that incident during his mayor's report at a recent city council meeting.
The second worst industrial accident in Canadian history, and that is the explosion at the number 1 Esplanade mine on May the 3rd, 1887. That was located fairly near the current cruise ship terminal. It exploded after gas or dust igniting, killing 150 men. Only 7 men survived the explosion, all of them working in the mine's engine room. The Esplanade mine was a maze of tunnels that extended under the harbor's ocean floor to Saskatchewan and Protection Island. The first explosion at 5:55 p.m. was 260 meters below sea level in what was known as the diagonal shaft in the city's largest mine, and it was the result of a poorly placed charge that ignited a pocket of coal bed gas released from a previous charge just minutes before. It served as an ignition to a massive amount of coal dust. The second blast was coal dust igniting on other slopes as the explosion rocketed through the underground shafts for almost a kilometer. The wooden head form built high above the pit caught fire and burned to the ground. The underground fire burned for 2 weeks. It took until July, this having happened on May the 3rd. It took until July before the last of the bodies could be recovered. Those 7 men remain somewhere beneath the Nanaimo Harbor to this day. To put this tragedy in its context as we complain about our lives today for various reasons, Nanaimo's population was approximately 2,000 people, and 150 people died in this explosion. 46 women lost their husbands. 126 children lost their fathers. The mine lost 25% of its employees. So as you think of workplace safety on April the 28th, be reminded that this city was once the site of one of Canada's most terrific industrial tragedies. And it behooves us to be grateful, as we surely learned through COVID, for the work that all the people in our country and around the world literally perform day in, day out going to work. And in this case, 150 people didn't come home as a result of the work.
Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krogh speaking about the largest mining disaster in British Columbia's history, which took place in Nanaimo 137 years ago next week.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Support Midcoast Morning and CHLY's nonprofit newsroom today by becoming a sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. Local news can't survive without your support. Another way to help us out is to share this show with your friends and tell them why they should support us. Finally, if you're listening to the podcast edition of Midcoast Morning, go and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast feed you use. It helps people find us.
If you know of anyone looking for a job, they've got a chance today to get their foot in the door. A few doors even. There's a career fair going on at Vancouver Island University from 11 to 3. It's in the gymnasium, which is Building 190, and it isn't just for students. To learn more, I spoke with organizer Jonah Ferguson.
My name is Jonah Ferguson, and I am the coordinator for employer and student engagement at Vancouver Island University under the VIU Career Studio. In my role, I organize events such as career fairs, employer panels, and other events to help connect VIU students from all programs with local employers from a variety of industries, while also helping coach students and alumni on their career development.
Well, thank you very much again for making some time to speak with me. Can you tell me who's welcome to come check out this career fair happening at VIU?
Yeah, so it's open to anybody, VIU students, alumni, members of the public interested in connecting with any of the 50 employers that we have attending, and a lot of local high school students. We actually have many career and life high school classes registered so that these students can come out and learn about careers with RCMP, Island Health, School District 68, so that they can kind of see some of those career pathways that they might want to pursue in the future.
You just listed a few, and you also mentioned that there are going to be 50 local employers there. Can you give me an idea of who's looking to hire people around town?
Yeah, so we have a little bit of everything. Like I said, RCMP, School District 68, Island Health. We also have Costco, Steve Marshall Ford. So a little bit of something for everybody, where if they're looking for summer jobs, post-graduation careers, if they're looking to go into healthcare, we have a lot of great healthcare employers. So a little bit of something for anyone, where it could be part-time, full-time, or even just developing relationships with some of these companies that might lead to future opportunities.
If I'm going to go to a career fair and kind of mingle around all the booths that are set up, what would your advice be to me to make sure I make the most out of it?
Yeah, so we often develop resources to help students and members of the public with this. If somebody actually looked up our VIU Career Studio webpage, we have right there on the webpage, we have a whole professional business etiquette page that will help people looking at attending these events see, okay, how should I dress? How should I speak? What kind of business etiquette should I be cognizant of? And so when people are looking to come out to this event, I would just say, ask questions, network. So introduce yourself. Make sure you're communicating well. You're introducing yourself. What is your background? What is your education? What kind of opportunities are you looking for? So that the attending employers can get a view and gauge of who are you and how could you fit into their organization. And so this is often, you might be able to find a position right there if they've got something open. Or like I said, developing those opportunities so you can learn more about the organization and you can keep an eye out for when other opportunities that might be more relevant to you and your skill set come available. So just approach them, ask questions, see what's out there for your own research, but also develop that relationship where they know you, and when they have positions come available, you might be top of mind.
Have you been able to see a concrete impact in terms of these kind of events turning into jobs and careers for people?
Yes. So we did another one of these events last September, and we had 60 employers come out in a 4-hour period. We had 650 students and alumni. That one, we didn't have members of the public there, but we had that many students come. And in a post-event survey, half of the employers who responded, there was a satisfaction rating of 87%, and just half of the employers anticipated to hire at least 60 students. So as a result of that event, I'm anticipating that there would have been over 120 hires.
Is there anything you're hearing from maybe employers as to what they're looking for in potential hires or people they might meet at a career fair right now?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we deal with and that I see in the industry is employers are really looking for those soft skills, things like problem solving, communication, teamwork, collaboration. So if you're able to effectively communicate those skills to an employer and show them how you are somebody who can fit into a variety of roles, a lot of employers right now are willing to offer training for the right person to help them grow into a role, as long as you have some of those soft skills, things like communication, innovation, problem solving. So it's really important for job seekers to learn how to communicate that and get comfortable talking about themselves in a way where they can show the employers how they can fit into their organization well and make their lives easier.
How do I talk about myself in a way that is going to be advantageous to me if I'm at a career fair?
Yeah, so one thing that we coach students on at the Career Studio that I really love is the use of STAR stories. So that STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. And so we encourage students, when you're approaching employers, when you're telling these stories to demonstrate your experience, start with talking about a difficult situation or a task that you might have been faced with, the actions that you took, and then a result that was obtained through that, and hopefully being able to use data. So if I were to coach a student on that for myself, I would say, okay, VIU hadn't had many large-scale career fairs in several years, so I took it upon myself to organize, plan, and market these events. We organized one large one in September, and as a result of that, I was able to bring 650 students and alumni out with over 120 hires anticipated. So being able to use that format where you walk through some of the challenges, your specific actions, and then any beneficial results. And like I said, data and storytelling is very important, because if you're speaking to an employer, if you could say, I improved a process or I solved a problem in a previous workplace that decreased wait times or increased productivity by 20%, they'll immediately fixate on that number, and that'll stick in their head, and it'll show that you are an effective employee and help them understand how you will fit into their organization.
So it's almost like you've got to be able to do a very professional kind of humble brag for people.
A little bit. It's interesting, because for me, my background was as a marketing student, and when I'm coaching students, my ethos is careers are essentially just marketing. You need to be able to show why, and as we see the industry get more competitive, you might be competing for these roles with hundreds of other applicants sometimes. So you need to be able to essentially a humble brag, but be able to effectively communicate why you are the best fit for this position and why you will solve those needs of the employer, so that they can say, okay, this person is obviously the person I want working for me. They are already able to showcase the skills, the competencies I need, so we'll be able to slot them right in with minimal training.
In the midst of the pandemic, we were hearing a lot of stories about labor shortages kind of across the board. Is that something you've been hearing about locally, and is it still the case as far as you know?
I think it depends on the industry. We're seeing things becoming more competitive right now, I believe, but it definitely depends on the industry. So if there's enough trained individuals in that industry to meet the supply. But based on this event, we've got a lot of healthcare employers coming out to find talent. And so if you look at different industries, you'll see tech might be going through layoffs sometimes, whereas healthcare, especially here on the island, always needs workers. So that's where it's important for job seekers to look at the different industries and jobs that they want to seek out, and look at what is the supply and demand in that respective industry. So healthcare, there's a lot of opportunities right now, so that's always a great one. But then looking at business and tech will often be up and down. So I wouldn't say we're seeing too much of a labor shortage, but it might be spread out across various industries.
Are there any scenarios where, for example, you talk about healthcare always needs people? Are there situations where folks might think, I don't have the qualifications for that, I haven't trained in that, where there might be opportunities they don't realize to get into some of those fields faster than they think?
Yeah, so it depends on the organizations and what kind of qualifications that they're asking for, because, like I said, a lot of employers are looking for soft skills. That's very important, but also in some of these more technical roles, healthcare, if you're doing nursing, you really need to have that nursing education to meet those requirements to move on in that process. So you could look at an institution like VIU, other educational opportunities where you can develop your credentials and certifications so that you can meet those requirements for those roles. Or it's even good just to connect with the employers to see what kind of programs they might have, because I've seen Island Health, other health authorities will actually pay for students to go into some of these programs if they're going into a certain type of career, such as it might be X-ray technician or another very technical career like that. If they're looking to fill a need in a remote community, that can sometimes be an option where they can offer those things to job seekers. So that's where it's just really good to do a lot of research for the industry you want, as well as the different organizations and what they're able to offer.
What are some of the logistics of this fair? When's it happening? If I'm going to show up, what do I need to bring? Is there anything I need to do in advance?
Yeah, so this career fair is taking place 11 a.m. till 3 Friday, April 26th. So that'll be today as of the time of this airing. And parking at VIU will be free in general and economy lot from 10 a.m. until 4. That's something we did so that it will make it easier for members of the public to access this event. And I would just really encourage people who will be attending to research all of the attending employers, see who's going to be there, learn about their companies, because as you're approaching employers, if you can demonstrate that you already have a knowledge of their organization, if you're able to ask good questions that will help them remember you and help you stand out from the rest of the other attendees, that will increase your opportunities of being a successful candidate for one of these jobs. And bring a resume, bring a business card to pass off to the employers that you want to connect with, and dress professionally. Again, we have that online resource on our VIU Career Studio website for professional business etiquette with other tips on how you can network, how you can communicate in this space. But 11 till 3, Friday, April 26th, open to all. And yeah, come find a job.
Jonah Ferguson is the coordinator for employer and student engagement at Vancouver Island University. There's a career fair taking place today, Friday, April 26th, from 11 to 3 at VIU's gymnasium, open to members of the public. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and Arby Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe for updates from our nonprofit newsroom and more. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Salish Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. If you're already a supporter, record a voice memo telling others where you're listening from and why they too should support our work. After you're done, you can email it to us. Also, share the podcast with your friends. While Meta is blocking Canadian users from sharing news content on their Facebook feeds, you can still share our podcast directly with your friends via Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Snuneymuxw First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.